Hello out there, audience members and the Z Short Film Festival themselves. My name is Barry Walton. I am the director of Empty America, COVID-19 and the War for Right. And we are, as we speak right now, I'm grabbing onto the steering wheel, we are in the car that so much of that film was either filmed from or got me to the places where I could film. I drove in this car for 3 weeks, and we drove from Los Angeles across the country to Washington, to New York, and ultimately Washington, D.C. But not in a direct line, and I can share more about that later. But this film was inspired because I, like so many Americans, was locked in my house, in my basement, working on my film, doing my stuff, and wanted to see firsthand what was going on with this pandemic, and I kind of wanted to escape. I was getting a little stir crazy. It was the winter in Detroit, and I wanted to get out, and I wanted to see, get out of the house and go to someplace warm. And initially, my goal was to go to the desert. I wanted to just go to someplace empty and void of people, but it led into a lot more than that. And I think the turning point for it becoming this project was Chicago. I was amazed as I went through Chicago during rush hour, just the lack of traffic and the lack of people. And that continued as I went through Minneapolis, and when I got up into the Dakotas and through Wyoming and saw the price of gas at 99 cents, and then ultimately through Las Vegas that was void of humans and void of people in general. I was continually driven forward to want to see more. And this trip began to take me, it began to pull me in. Coincidence started to occur. You know, one of the most simple and basic coincidence that I felt like where I was being drawn in was when I was in Los Angeles in Hollywood. And I don't know the Walk of Stars very well, and that walk goes for like 2 miles. And I just decided to park and get kind of some of Sunset Boulevard empty, void of people. And the third star that I walked on the Walk of Stars was the star of Tom Hanks. And that was in the radio at the time. That was on the news. He was one of the first celebrities, with COVID. And so I captured that and captured more scenes like that kind of just kept driving me forward. And inspired by listening to AM radio, because part of the reason that I left my home was to get away from the bigger corporate networks, I started to insert that into the film itself and record these sound bites from local kind of people calling into radio stations and local broadcasters and get kind of the feedback in local regions of what it was like. And then I started picking up the parks announcements and I started picking up the AM radio broadcasts for the highway patrol, for the truckers. And the truckers, who were the only people out on the road, primarily, now there were times when that was not always the case, but overwhelmingly it was truckers, were the people that were out there frontline struggling to make it through this. They didn't have a choice. Those guys don't have a choice. Financially, they don't have a choice. And that was part of also what drove this and inspired this, was seeing the working class people of America who didn't necessarily have the luxury of shutting down, that needed to keep going forward. And truckers, who I dedicated this film to, were a big part of that. But probably the biggest moment in this festival was when I was coming out of Las Vegas, out of Death Valley, and we had to take a quick bathroom stop. It had to happen quick. And out in the middle of this desert field, and field is probably not the right word because the desert is just open wasteland, there was a tank. And being a former member of the United States Army and military and a Boy Scout type myself, I wanted to get a closer look. And when I did, I realized that I stumbled upon a memorial to Tiananmen Square, a Tiananmen Square memorial. In the middle of nowhere. It was so random that out here in the desert, this Tiananmen Square memorial was kind of sitting. And then further that I stumbled across it because I didn't even know it existed. And then as I was observing this memorial and this space, I turned to see a fence, and on that fence, written primarily in Chinese, but also in Chinese, translated into English, and then ultimately some only in English, were just a long list of signs that people had written, created, and hung that said, beware of the CCP virus. Beware of the CCP virus. And alone, stranded in America, an empty America, I felt like I was the only one in the world seeing this, and I had this kind of burning bush moment where I did not want to touch conspiracy necessarily, but felt a sudden obligation to learn more. And as a filmmaker, felt an obligation to present more. And so ultimately a trip that was only going to go into the desert drove for 3 weeks across the entire United States, coast to coast, and ended up in New York, empty and void like every other part of America, and Washington, D.C. And then home, where I quickly edited and cut the piece together. I got a little coverage from the local news, Channel 4 of Fox Detroit, and put it out there. And right as soon as I put it out there, I was originally just going to put it out there for people to see. The riots hit, and this became passé. This was old news, which I couldn't believe. First time ever have a shutdown, and I was able to capture something very unique, and it went by the wayside. Fortunately, in the festivals, it has not. As of today, it has won 11 Best Documentary Shorts, and I think it's just the beginning. And we are super honored today to be in Z Shorts as another film festival to recognize this piece. And we hope to see this to go on to much larger success, much larger road of success. And after this, speaking of the future and my plans, I hope to begin an Empty America live tour where I talk about exactly what I shared and more, because there is so much more to what drove this trip and what inspired this. But tonight I am honored, today I am honored by Z Shorts to be able to put this out there, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope it offers some perspective, and I would love to hear from you. So thanks again for watching, and thanks again to Z Shorts for putting this on, and I wish you all the best.